a senior top 16 finish at the World Championships, a couple of regional championships under his belt, and he's had a solid first year as a master thus far. He got top 16 at Curitiba as a master, he got top 64 at LAIC, but those have really been his only two major tournaments. There's just not nearly as many regional championships taking place in Latin America. That's one of the reasons Vinny decided to come compete at this event, and he's proven himself already getting to top 4 with Giratina V-Star.
Yeah, an excellent deck, tried and true at this point. Won a mirror match to get out and is hitting a matchup that he is pretty confident in his ability. He has the game plan, as he said during his interview, and he just needs to execute on that. But his opponent, Gustavo Wada, maybe he is also on the Mount Rushmore. EUIC champion, tons of top 16s, just a storied player, and already he won against a Giratina V-Star, so he might be feeling comfortable going into this match as well.
Yeah, he's coming off that win against Isaiah Bradner in top 8. It's going to be that same matchup here in top 4. We'll see if he can overcome that mountain once again. Gustavo, without a doubt, one of the best players in the game. Definitely a top 5 consideration for current players, maybe even all time as well. A world champion in addition to that, you know, winning back in 2012 in the juniors division. He has been around for quite some time.
So as the players get ready to jump into game number 1, here's the prizes. Mirage Step Curlia going to be off the table for Gustavo Wada.
Yeah, that is not ideal, but Radiant Greninja being off the table for Vinny. Also that one copy of Cramorant. Those are both one-ofs in his list that he has prized. It's going to be a scrappy one from the start here, Scarze.
Yeah, Cramorant is so good for putting on the early aggression, setting up some damage counters, so it's harder for Gardevoir EX to attach those energies where they want. But Gustavo, without Mirage Step Curlia, means he doesn't have that comeback potential that Gardevoir is known for if it falls behind early. We'll have to see how things open up here as we get into game number 1. Gustavo Wada starting off with Manaphy in the active. Vinny starts with Comfey, benches a Giratina V. 2 Giratina Vs, already looking like a great start for him.
Yeah, having that Comfey in the active as well means he'll be able to get some cards powered up in his Lost Zone right away. And leads off with a Nest Ball. In addition to that, wants to make sure to play that card before utilizing that Flower Selecting, so that way he knows when he's making that Lost Zone decision, he's doing it with full knowledge of what he has access to for this game.
Yeah, counting the Pokemon, counting the energies, sees what the prizes are looking like. No Radiant Greninja, no Cramorant for now. It's going to be a very weird game. It's going to be, you know, Abyss seeking, filling up the Lost Zone. And we'll have to see, right, if just Shred can do a lot of early work to put Gustavo Wada behind. And it's important to note, right, when it comes to Gardevoir, it also has a dark side. Giratina has a reputation for bricking, but Gardevoir sometimes starts with only one route or not even a Curlia, and it's very easy for the opponent to hunt those down. With Manaphy in the active, things could get awkward for Gustavo's opening compared to what Vinny's put together.
Yeah, honestly, considering Vinny's prize cards at this point, I would expect to see him put 3 Comfey in play this turn. And honestly, it might have been good for Vinny to hold off on benching either of these Giratina until after he searched his deck, because if he wants to put 3 Comfey in play, it can be nice to have that open bench space or 2 to work with. So we'll see exactly how it works out. He's going to want to probably push for 3 cards in the Lost Zone this turn so that we can see a turn 2 Shred or maybe even a turn 2 Lost Impact.
Yeah, already taking stock of the path to the peak and the Mirage Gate. Vinny Fernandes, you go in, as we said, Chip, with plan A. You know what your basic idea is for the matchup. But then with the prize cards, with your opening hand, that plan is always going to change. It looks like Vinny still remaining very calm and has a plan in mind.
Yeah, he doesn't look like a first-year master, that is for sure. He looks as calm as anyone, as any true veteran of the game. And while we mentioned he is a first-year master, he is really someone who could be considered a veteran of the game. He has been playing this game for years and years since he was a juniors division player. So really not surprised to see him transition so well into the Masters division.
And finally, after that Nest Ball and the shuffle from Gustavo, going to be the first Flower Selecting from Vinny Fernandes.
Yeah, 2 cards from the top, 1 to the hand, 1 to the Lost Zone. Let's see if he's got any tough decisions to make right off the bat, and that is a key card.
Ew, that is all I can say.
That Avery is a super important card. It is a tech for
just
this
a
matchup.
Just a one of, and the Sableye. So important for cleaning up those damaged Pokemon once the Psychic Embrace has put all of those Psychic Energies into play, taking multiple prizes later on in the game. And Vinny has to sacrifice the Sableye. Gustavo wondering what card was more important than Sableye in this matchup.
Yeah, pretty wild. I mean, most Tina lists at this point do only have one Sableye, and that is something Vinny has this game as well. Did find the Jet Energy, but I don't see a way to get the third Comfey, so just 2 cards in the Lost Zone will be all Vinny can muster.
Now it's over to Gustavo. Wada opens up with the Fog Crystal, is now going to be able to search the deck and see that Mirage Step Curlia is missing, but the rest of the routes are all there. Zacian V also present, and Gardevoir is a list that tends to be a little bit more straightforward. You don't have to go down into weird lines just because you have access to so much card draw with Refinement and Shining Arcana, but still, everything rides on the quality of your opening foundation.
Yeah, with Gustavo having that Mirage Step Curlia prized, I do expect to see him push to get multiple routes into play this turn. Normally you can play these early turns with just 2 routes in play, commit to the Mirage Step angle, but it's not something he's going to be able to do. Does eye up the Mew right away with that Mysterious Tail. More than likely, we're going to see this come into the active spot and utilize Mysterious Tail to try to search for a Battle VIP pass.
It's always the beautiful start for the Gardevoir list. There's the attach and retreat. Mysterious Tail looking for the top 6 cards of the card. One more.
Last card, no VIP pass. And I think his only out to a Ralts in hand is a pair of Ultra Ball.
Wow, Ultra Ball just to get the routes down. And this is trouble, Chip, because again, that's a single routes that Vinny Fernandes might be able to hunt down. Gustavo maybe has some information, right, that the Cramorant's not there quite yet. Might be in the prizes, so might just need to go for the single routes and pray.
Yeah, no supporter card in this hand either for Gustavo. That would be another way he could maybe get out of a tough situation like this if he could, you know, go get a Ralts and then play Iono, play Research, draw a bunch of cards, give himself a shot to find a VIP pass here on this pivotal first turn. But he just is not going to have those options at all. One single Ralts and a pass.
Yeah, and it's too risky to go for Ultra Ball, Radiant Greninja, try to draw. You need the routes so you can be in a position to evolve it next turn and get the Curlia. Jet Energy sent to the Lost Zone off of Flower Selecting. Switch card brings the next Comfey up. Flower Selecting number 2. Colress is offered and taken. Played immediately. 5 cards off the top for Vinny. 2 are going to go to the Lost Zone. 3 added to the hand.
It looks like a pair of VIP.
Beautiful.
The easiest decision any Lost Zone player will ever make.
And already game number 1 going very well in Vinny's favor, despite having to give up the Sableye to the Lost Zone and Cramorant being in the prizes. The Lost Zone is just getting fed. It's getting full, Chip.
Yeah, and putting that path to the peak in play does turn off any potential pop-off turns, really, from Gustavo, though they would be relatively unlikely to happen anyway with such a low hand size. Vinny will go with Giratina's favorite attack, Abyss Seeking, looking at the top 4, getting to keep 2 in Lost Zone 2.
It's great, too, because with this matchup being so slow in the opening turns, you can get away with 1 or 2 Abyss Seekings without much detriment. With 8 cards already in the Lost Zone, the threat potential is now coming alive. Gustavo Wada now going for the refinement, discarding a Gardevoir EX. Ooh, this is clunky.
Not ideal, without a doubt. That Mysterious Tail is able to hit a level ball, however, so we can see at least 1 more Ralts come into play. That does hit the bench pretty quickly here.
And so with 1 refinement used, Mysterious Tail used, things are still pretty dicey for Gustavo. I'd like to see
have
1
to be
more
a pass.
just a pass.
He has an Ultra Ball in hand, but only 2 other cards, so doesn't want to do that. And now Mirage Gate is online. Vinny can get aggressive. And honestly, if he has a boss's orders in hand, I would not hate to see Vinny try to capitalize on Gustavo's slow start, target down this Curlia, take away that draw power, and see if it can get you ahead in this game.
Beautiful Mirage Gate, just setting up the attachments here, getting a Grass Energy onto the bench Giratina V. When you're able to have this dual threat, you have 1 Pokemon in the active that's going to attack and take some prizes. You have the next attacker waiting in the wings to be promoted into the active. It's so good for you as a player to keep that pressure up.
Vinny does play 2 copies of the boss's orders, and I do believe Pokegear is in hand from the Abyss Seeking. Let's see if he goes for it and tries to find it. No, just has boss in the hand, targeting down this Kirlia and really crippling Gustavo's setup here. Doesn't have much of one to stand for, and all he has in hand is a pair of VIP Pass with the Ultra Ball.
So awkward, so unfortunately,
And no
time for
hits
Gustavo.
from Mysterious
Wada
Tail.
has to go for Ultra Ball now.
Refinement once again, and he's going to have to discard yet another Gardevoir from his hand. It's that Chilling Rain Gardevoir is the last card available. He's going to have to discard it with Refinement. If this does not find a supporter card, I think Gustavo might just be too far behind. We'll see.
Yeah, and in this matchup, we know that it's going to take a long time to play out all 3 games. Scoops it up. Nothing from the second Refinement.
Wow. What a game number 2. What could have been, or sorry, game number 1. What could have been absolutely disastrous for Vinny Fernandes with those prize cards turns out to be a pretty favorable situation. Gustavo just really not having the setup, and Vinny identifying that quickly, going for the boss's orders, knowing he was safe to go for that Abyss Seeking to get to the 7 cards in the Lost Zone, using the Mirage Gate. Just that whole turn sequence came together super nicely, and Vinny goes up 1-0 here in top 4.
And it is important to note, Chip, right? Again, Giratina, and Vinny said during his interview before top 4, you know, I just hope that I don't brick, and Gardevoir can be a victim of that. No battle VIP Pass to get the multiple routes in play. Really bad hits off of the Mew with Mysterious Tail. And if, you know, the other match that we just saw on stream for top 8 was a nail biter, this one is already looking to be pretty cut and done.
Definitely looking pretty solid for Vinny, but we cannot count Gustavo Wada out. There's a reason he's a 2-time international champion, a former world champion as well. He knows what he's doing. He knows that he's got to just shake that off. He can't dwell on game number 1 and what happened. He has to focus on what he has control of, and that is game number 2 and hopefully a game number 3.
He's had this stone cold stare this entire time, Chip. Absolutely unfazed by that first game, is already going over what needs to be executed in game 2 and game 3 to keep on advancing to the finals of this regional.
Looks like Gustavo did have a mulligan, so already giving Vinny a bit of an advantage here. 1 additional card to start the game. And I did get a little bit of a sneak peek here. It does look like things are going to be much better for Gustavo here in game number 2. I already see a Battle VIP Pass.
And so after losing game 1, if you're the Gardevoir player, do you want to go first or second, Chip?
Yeah, I think you do want to go first. Oh, wow, look at this. A pair of Grass Energy and a pair of Water Energy in the prizes for Vinny Fernandes. That is, yet again, not ideal. But yeah, for Gustavo, I do think you want to go first. Try to establish your board, get a bunch of routes in play. Of course, if you let the Giratina player go second, there's a chance they can get off that turn 1 Cramorant attack and just take a prize right away. But you want your opponent to take prizes. You've mentioned it several times. It's important for this Gardevoir deck to play from behind, activate those reversal energies, those counter catchers. They are the most powerful cards in your deck.
And if the, Giratina player gets carried away with their lead, with their momentum, their perceived, lead in the match, can just overextend into an Iono or something like that.
And
but with
Vinny has a guaranteed attack with Cramorant already in the hand. Battle VIP Pass can bring down the Cramorant, and he's got Jet Energy and Colress, a pair of Comfey. That leads to 4 cards in the Lost Zone. He's going to take a turn 1 knockout.
Right, and Gustavo Wada played the VIP Pass, got the second routes, the Radiant Greninja, attached an energy to this first route, just trying to threaten the Mirage step, of course, or just a way to retreat it into a Mew, whatever you got to do. And so now this Psychic Energy is going to go to the discard pile as the Cramorant comes out. But that's looking a little bit into the future, of course, Chip. Vinny Fernandes, of course, still needs to evaluate these flower selectings, still make some decisions leading up to that point.
Yeah, really solid opening here for Vinny. Just about everything he could hope for. I like that he's playing this Battle VIP Pass before using any Colress, using any flower selecting, so he has knowledge of the energy cards that are prized, and this is a perfect example of why you want to do that, right? He only has 3 Grass Energy in his deck. 2 of them are prized. So now I feel like the basic Grass Energy honestly becomes one of the most important cards in Vinny Fernandes' entire deck. If he sees that off of one of these Flower Selectings or Colress, he knows he has to keep it.
Yep, Sableye going to the Lost Zone again, Chip. I need this basic grass energy.
Yeah, what a trade-off, huh?
And this is something as well. This is so interesting, right? Like the younger players tend to do this where they sort all the Pokemon to the front and just fan it out and just have a more visual spread of what's in the prizes versus not. It's one, you know, because you're just going to shuffle your deck after that search regardless. So just taking the extra time. And we've got a great buffer here in top 4, 75 minutes.
And especially with a very fast game number 1.
Yeah, plenty of time here in game 2 and a potential game 3.
Yeah, just making note of everything that's prized, counting his supporter cards, wants to see if that Avery is hanging around. We talked about that being a pretty important card for this matchup.
Now, the general idea, right, with this matchup is Giratina needs to get a lot of cards in the Lost Zone early, so Mirage Gate can allow you to get attackers ready to go to contest Gardevoir, while Gardevoir is trying to play from behind, disrupt, and then go into this later game scenario where they're able to rely on a lot of single prize Pokemon that are kind of manipulating the prize race back into their favor. But with Vinny, with the Jet Energy, Colress's experiment, as you talked about, Chip, turn 1 Cramorant means that he's going high octane in game 2.
What do we see right there in the hand? The most important card in his entire deck right now.
The Grass Energy finally picked up. You can just attach that for turn to the Giratina V. Super important to have here.
Yeah, probably going to be that Jet Energy right on the Comfey.
Oh, yeah, true,
Get that pivot in there. But can discard a Psychic Energy to the Radiant Greninja. You could also discard the Grass. You, of course, have Super Rods to bring it back, so it's not too big of a deal, but using Greninja feels pretty strong. Flower Selecting now. I think it's a Roxanne and a Mirage Gate. Yeah. Roxanne is another big card in the matchup. You want to be able to Roxanne plus put Path to the Peak in play, try to buy yourself a turn at the end of the game.
And with this sequence of Jet Energy, having the Cramorant, keeping the Mirage Gate, maybe indicates that Vinny is looking to go aggressive and remain aggressive.
He does choose to discard, or Lost Zone, I should say, a basic energy. With 4 in the prizes, it's a little risky, but it's leading to a turn 1 KO. Vinny Fernandes jumping ahead very quickly here in this opening. Gustavo Wada promoting that Ralts, really needing and hoping to find that Mirage Step Kirlia.
Draws 2 off of Radiant Greninja's concealed cards. Has Ultra Ball at the very least to find that.
Yeah,
but what are you going to discard?
Yeah, he can guarantee it, and actually, if he has Super Rod, he does have Super Rod, he's got a pretty decent play. He can Ultra Ball to discard the 1 Refinement Kirlia that he drew into, unfortunately. So it's in the discard pile. He can't put it into play with Mirage Step, but using the Super Rod, he can put it back into the deck, so now he can get the full board set up.
Ultra Ball finds Mirage Step Kirlia. Fog Crystal finds the energy to attach to it. Super Rod puts the routes and the Kirlia back in the deck so that Mirage Step can bring it into play. Beautifully done. Mew also hitting the bench. And there is Mirage Step. There was a lot of contention, right, based on Gardevoir, whether or not Mirage Step was necessary. Oh, you know, do I want to count on being behind? But with the advent of Counter Catcher and Reversal Energy, Gardevoir is more than happy to go down on prizes, take a slow opening, and just get established for a plethora of card draw.
Yeah, and the thing that would normally be a little scary about this board is that there is no Manaphy in play. And Vinny does play 3 basic water energy, so he could potentially attack with Radiant Greninja. That would definitely be what he would want to do in this position, but he prized 2 basic water energy, so not going to be something he has an option to pull off. Gustavo might be holding his breath a little bit, but will breathe a sigh of relief whenever Greninja does not receive any energy cards this turn.
Yeah, especially with Vinny putting so many cards in the Lost Zone quickly, the threat of that Moonlight Shuriken is weighing on Gustavo for certain. The basic Grass Energy is discarded with Radiant Greninja, so that's going to need to be recovered later.
I think he did take one off the prizes, so has a second one available.
True. So Colress's experiment, this is just the beautiful sequence that you love to see when you're a Lost Zone player. Getting the Colress into the Colress, just beautifully filling up the Lost Zone. No need for Abyss Seeking. This is just classic Lost Zone.
Yeah, your deck is really working super well at this point. Vinny is doing exactly what he wants to do, amassing a large hand, giving himself plenty of options. Pokegear and Switch Cart potentially going down.
Ooh, I like keeping the switch cart. I think that one of the biggest things that, can punish Giratina is getting something awkward into the active spot. You can't really get the attacker you need when you need it, and he does reconsider to put the Path to the Peak in the Lost Zone instead.
Yeah, Path is a pretty important card in this matchup, but Vinny is playing 4 copies of that card. Already having one in hand makes him feel okay about Lost Zoning 1.
And even though we've been complimenting Vinny's really, really strong start, being able to leapfrog, right, from Colress to Colress, Gustavo Wada did successfully pull off the Mirage Step Curlia, and, these can very easily become multiple Gardevoir next turn. He's looking to draw, 8 or more cards coming up. But after attaching the other basic grass energy to Giratina V, Vinny is continuously threatening the Shred and potentially the Star Requiem further on. Cramorant now once again returning to the active spot. Vinny just reconsidering the energy counts, doesn't go for the Mirage Gate yet, takes another grass energy off the prizes, and order is restored now to the energy balance on Fernandez's side.
And we're going on to Gustavo's turn, using that Mew with Mysterious Tail right off the bat. Maybe just looking for a card to discard here with Refinement. I think he's got 3 pretty good ones in the hand.
Ooh, decides to take Ultra Ball. Looking for a Gardevoir off of that, it looks like. But depends on, what he has to discard. Plenty of Refinement still to be had. Maybe looking for more fodder, some VIP passes that are easy discards for the Ultra Ball to then go into Gardevoir. So what's the choice here?
Looks like a pair of Counter Catcher in the hand. Not really something he loves to discard, but it's what he has to do here. Okay, not too bad. We see another energy card, a Battle VIP pass. These are all easy choices to discard, and now things are starting to get rolling. Gustavo Wada able to find a Professor's Research. At worst, he can go for that this turn. Will choose the Refinement first, though.
And the deck is coming alive. Gardevoir being built in this modern era as a deck that, just plays very passively early. If you don't punish their start, or if they get the Mirage Step, then suddenly the deck just blossoms. And with all of this card draw coming through, Gustavo will have so many resources and ways to respond to Vinny Fernandez. Took 2 early prizes off of Cramorant, but Gustavo Wada sees the prize map already. With the Giratina V ×2 on the bench, the prize map is already being envisioned, and it's easy for Gardevoir and Gardevoir EX to hit those numbers later on.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised we didn't see Vinny put Path to the Peak in play to end his turn. It forces Gustavo to find one more thing. He may be saving the Path to the Peak for later in the game to combine with, some future Roxannes, something along those lines. But Gustavo is setting up pretty decently here and is going to go aggressive after this Giratina V with the energy card. There's a decent shot that he can pull this off. Has Reversal Energy active. He's got the 2 Gardevoirs in play. He still has Shining Arcana and Refinement to use. This turn is far from over. And how about that Reversal Energy, one of the first cards revealed?
Absolutely glorious Professor's Researches. 7 fresh cards. Shining Arcana also being utilized here to draw 2 more. And the world is his oyster suddenly, Chip. You cannot count out Gustavo Wada. A famous quote by Chip Ritchie.
I'll take it. Now, the question here is how many energy cards are in Gustavo's discard pile? Is there enough for him to reach for the knockout on this active? And it looks like the answer to that question is yes. Brain Wave from this Gardevoir, dealing 60 damage plus 30 more for each Psychic Energy attached. And with that Reversal Energy and 3 more Psychic Energies, that'll be 240 damage, more than enough to KO Giratina V.
Beautifully done. And with the Reversal Energy, too, you don't have to put as much damage on the Gardevoir, which is great. Taking 2 prizes on the Giratina, and now Vinny needs to respond. Cramorant can come out to get the knockout against this, but there's not a lot of energy in play, right, Chip? We got to find Mirage Gate, etc., to keep that threat alive. And this is where Gardevoir really shines, is when it's able to just knock out and hunt down your main aggressive Pokemon and kind of leaving you in shambles.
And again, I just want to emphasize, Vinny could be in an excellent position here because he normally would have solid access to the Radiant Greninja because there's no Manaphy on Gustavo's bench, but it's just not something he can do with the energies that are prized. He's going to have to give up on that line of play.
Yeah, there's 1 Water Energy. The other 2 are at the top of the prize cards. So that is just completely off the table. There is potential for Sableye this turn. Going to discard the Psychic Energy, drawing 2 with concealed cards.
Yeah,
I think I saw a Chorus.
And the Sableye would be pretty solid here with 40 HP remaining on the Mew, 80 HP remaining on this Gardevoir. Lines up perfectly, 120 damage, 2 prize KO. And then all Vinny would need to do to close the game out would be to bring up this Gardevoir, use Star Requiem with a Giratina V-Star.
Yep, the classic coup de grace. Now, Nest Ball, just thinning the deck a little bit more, finding that Sableye. I don't know if it's already in the hand. There you are. There's only 1 in the deck.
Now, I will say the thing that's a little unfortunate about this board setup is that Vinny is unable to bench 2 Giratina V and the Sableye at the same time. You know, he's got the full bench of 5 at this point, the 1 Pokemon in the active. So while he can go for the Sableye play, and it looks like that is what he's going to do, he needs just 3 more cards in the Lost Zone, which should be pretty easy with this Colress and the Comfey. There is a pretty clear-cut response for Gustavo, right? And that's Counter Catcher or Boss's Orders, the Giratina V. Now, Gustavo is down both of his counter catchers, so that does make things a little bit more difficult for him to pull off, and I think is only playing 1 Boss's Orders in his list, so that could lead to some issues.
And after Chorus's experiment, Vinny inches closer and closer to that key 10 cards in the Lost Zone to turn on Lost Mine and Flower Selecting once more. Has to attach return to the Sableye, needs to find a way to get this Comfey out of the active. Giratina V-Star going to be sent to the Lost Zone in order to keep... Was that an Avery?
It was the Avery. Yeah, you only need really 1 Giratina V-Star at this point to win the game, so you don't mind losing 1. The only thing that could be a potential issue is finding it off of an incoming Iono, and I think we're going to see it. Lost Mine spreading those 12 damage counters. Is Vinny, going to take the 2 prizes while they are available to him?
It's tricky. It depends on what the rest of the hand is looking like. Avery is there. You can't really play that because your opponent's just going to discard those damaged Pokemon. But
another option, which I might honestly like better, would be to KO the Kirlia and the Mew, right? Take those out, get rid of this Kirlia so that you limit some of the refinement abilities later on in the game, you know, thinking ahead past just this turn. But no, it does look like Vinny will, for now, take out the active Pokemon, deal with the threat at hand.
Goes down to 2 cards remaining in the prizes. Gustavo Wada promotes routes. This is a prime target just to get a rare candy played, come back as a Shining Arcana Gardevoir, and...
Still no Path to the Peak being put in play, by the way, for Vinny.
Oh, yeah, nice shout out there.
A little curious, to be honest. Not really sure what he's waiting for. This is one of the matchups where you want all of those Path to the Peaks. You want to utilize them as quickly as possible. You know, maybe assuming Gustavo just has a Stadium Bump in hand, but really the Path is something you don't really want to draw into. You don't really want it in your deck when your opponent plays an Iono or something like that.
And Ultra Ball does find that Shining Arcana Gardevoir. No rare candy? Question. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it has the rare candy in hand and the evolution. Shining Arcana going to see 2 more cards. Refinement hasn't been used yet. Concealed cards hasn't been used yet. So still so many resources to see for Gustavo Wada. And as you mentioned, Chip, his big idea is to bring up that Giratina V-Star and take those 2 prizes because Sableye doesn't have a lot of strong targets to respond with.
Yeah, and actually, Gustavo is going with the Iono. He did not find the other Reversal Energy, so I don't think he would have been able to get there without, you know, the Gardevoir doesn't have enough HP, effectively, right, to get there. So going for the Iono instead, trying to disrupt Vinny.
So now Vinny Fernandes down to 2 cards, didn't play the Path to the Peak, and when you know that this is what's going to happen to you. Vinny mentioned it during his interview before he went into this match. He knows that you just have to be able to survive against the Ionos and the Roxannes, this late game hand disruption.
Yeah, really, I guess the main issue for Gustavo was that if he wanted to attack with that Gardevoir, he would have had to put way too much damage on his board. So if he goes Gust KO the Giratina, then the Gardevoir plus the Manaphy or something like that can be KO'd.
Okay.
He would definitely like to find his Jirachi at some point here, but no, is going to put down the Ralts.
So bench is now full Reversal Energy. Just going to take a 1 prize knockout, get rid of that Sableye threat. The Giratina V-Star has no energy attached to it. Vinny Fernandes has been limited to 2 cards, so Gustavo says it's pretty unlikely that this will be able to swing on me, And if Vinny has to pivot into a Cramorant, Gardevoir is still plenty healthy to survive a hit from that.
It is technically possible for Vinny Fernandes to win the game this turn. He needs to boss his orders and use that Star Requiem V-Star power to take 2 prizes on this Gardevoir EX. And I did notice a boss's orders in his hand. Now, I don't think that there is any
Boss off of Iono, classic.
I don't think there's any one card that he can get off the Comfey, excuse me, that we are expecting to see here in just a moment. I don't think there's any one card he can get that leads to him winning. It might have to be a basic energy found off the flower selecting and then a Radiant Greninja being utilized to try to find a Mirage Gate and a switch or something along those lines. Doesn't have to win the game this turn as well. It is something he'll, have his eye out for. He does have the potential to win the game here, but with Gustavo having 3 prize cards, he doesn't have to close it out.
So just draw some cards, and this could be the consideration why there's no path to the peak. Vinny doesn't want to be locked out of using Radiant Greninja's concealed cards after getting his hand disrupted. But if let's say you get offered path to the peak right now with this flower selecting, you just take it and play it.
Depends on what the other card is. Always depends on that other card, right? And it looks like Vinny putting himself in the blender here off this flower selecting.
And I just got to say I appreciate that the players have the extra time pool to really consider these choices. Both decks very intricate. Giratina, its claim to fame is how complex it can get with every decision you need to make.
It's a 2-card combo that could win Vinny the game. I don't think he got it.
I think I saw that to the peak.
A pair of them, it looks like.
And now Vinny has another choice to make. Decides to play the path, limiting the Radiant Greninja on Gustavo's side, limiting that Gardevoir on Gustavo's side to stop the bleeding, so to speak. Just needs to bide enough time to get the pieces together to bring up the Gardevoir EX and hit it with the Star Requiem.
Now, Gustavo does have plenty of ways to get rid of this path to the peak. He's got himself the Worker. He's got his counter stadiums. He's got 1 copy of Lost Vacuum in his list as well. It's going to be something he would like to find so he can utilize perhaps the Radiant Greninja and then, of course, the Psychic Embrace of his Gardevoir EX. He doesn't actually have to use Psychic Embrace this turn. He could even just leave the path in play because it is hurting Vinny a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Vinny doesn't have access to the Radiant Greninja now, so we could see him leave the path in play and just use this active Gardevoir, take the knockout on the Comfey. Plenty of options available to both players here.
With Giratina V-Star having no energy attached to it, right? The ability to read whether it can attack you next turn is very much in Gustavo's favor. And you can just slowly take prizes and just come back from this position. Once your opponent loses that cadence of, I have an attacker in the active and an attacker prepped on the bench and ready to go, you suddenly open up this ginormous window of opportunity to just play the game at your own leisure.
Gustavo was able to find another Iono off of the Refinement, so we could see that disruption option come through. The problem is that while you are disrupting Vinny, you also kind of disrupt yourself. And Gustavo has tons of path bumps in his hand currently, so he may not want to risk not being able to find them in a future turn. It looks like it's a pair of Stadium and the Lost Vacuum all in Gustavo's hand.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm thinking, like, maybe you have the Iono and then you hopefully draw into something that can shuffle your deck back up, but it's still very unlikely. Gustavo Wada's deck still looks pretty thick, and with all those cards from the hand going back into the deck, still going to be a very difficult time drawing into those needed Stadium bumps.
Yeah, taking a moment here to think through what exactly he needs to do. Gonna even count the deck at this point, perhaps doing a little bit of math, calculating the odds that he would draw a certain card that he may need.
Yeah, you're in a sticky situation when both players are looking at the discard piles, counting the deck, trying to really evaluate resources. After the Lost Vacuum is played, gets rid of that path to the peak.
Ooh.
Gustavo actually going to kick the Jirachi.
Yeah, it doesn't have the bench space for it and is assuming that he's going to go for game in the next 2 turns. So doesn't want to go for it. Uses that Radiant Greninja, drawing 2 more cards. It does find a boss's orders and is going to capitalize on this reversal energy that he has in play. Go for this knockout and really hope here that Vinny is unable to find a Sableye, and if Vinny can get his Sableye back, it could put him in a winning position. We see that Super Rod already on the top of Vinny's deck. He does play 2 copies of it, only 1 Sableye. Can he find a way to close out the game here?
So close. Gustavo taking out the threat of that Star Requiem. Gardevoir EX is safe for now. And now it's back over to Vinny Fernandes. Without Path to the Peak in play, does have access to flower selecting and potentially the concealed cards to see just a few more off of the top. Needs to find a way to recover the Sableye and get the energy attached to it and get the Comfey out of the active.
Vinny could win the game this turn, and I think he drew Colress's Experiment, the best possible card I think he could have found. Looking at the top 5, no Super Rod. An energy card, however, can draw him more with this Radiant Greninja. He also finds the Giratina V and a Path to the Peak. It's not too bad to see at this point. Here we go, concealed cards.
2 big cards right now. Vinny Fernandes, what have you got?
It's a Pokegear and an Avery. Running out of gas, running out of steam, throwing away another Tina V-Star. That means all 3 Tina V-Star are accounted for. 2 in the Lost Zone, 1 in the discard pile. Path to the Peak, and Prey is the play, I think, here for Vinny Fernandes. Counter Catcher, try to slow things down. Checking Gustavo's energies in the discard pile. Is there a chance Gustavo does not have an energy available to move this Greninja? Will he have to find his own Super Rod this turn?
Yeah, benches the Giratina V. Gustavo Wada's down to just 1 prize card remaining, so it doesn't matter. Just get this down. You have that additional pivot of the Star Requiem to threaten the whatever is in the active, right? To just take 1 prize or 2 prize here. Attaches for the turn to the Comfey, and there's the pass.
Gustavo needing to find a way to move this Greninja. A basic Psychic Energy will do it and win him the game, of course. Gardevoir's Psychic Embrace only able to accelerate energy to Psychic-type Pokemon. Let's see, does Gustavo have a Super Rod or an energy? I don't see it yet.
Refining, drawing.
2 cards. Is that last card in deck a Super Rod? It's the Psychic Energy! Gustavo has the retreat, moves into the Gardevoir, takes his final prize. We're going to game 3 in top 4.
Absolutely outstanding. Had to go through the entire deck. Vinny Fernandes, and this is important to note, right? Had a great lead, but didn't want to fall into the trap of setting up Path to the Peak and stumbling into some hand disruption and then not having Radiant Greninja to bail himself out. Right at the 11th hour, was not able to find the Super Rod to recover Sableye and take that game.
What a set this has been so far. I would expect nothing less from the best of Brazil. Both of these players representing their home country with pride. And Vinny did jump out to an early lead in this game. Things maybe looking a little bleak for Gustavo, but he got off that Mirage Step, filled his board with Kirlia, and Vinny just did not have the punish thanks to those 2 Water Energies being in his prizes. Look at those 2 Water Energies hanging out, those final 2 prize cards.
Yeah, Gustavo Wada didn't have the Manaphy in play for so long, and we don't know if it was just a hard read or if it was just unfortunate timing. The punish never lined up.
Yeah, it's all he could do. And Vinny was not aggressive with his Path to the Peaks early in this game. Now, Vinny is a very smart player. I have to assume he's got a solid reason as to why he wanted to hang on to those cards, but I do have to question it just a little bit. You want to try to slow this Gardevoir deck down, and he was in a dominant position. If one of those Path to the Peaks on turn 2, turn 3 could have stuck in play for a little bit longer, perhaps we'd be talking about Vinny heading to the finals.
And as we head into game 3, everything's reset. The decks are shuffled, 6 prizes, and this is the scariest time for both players, Chip, because Giratina V can get off to some pretty awkward starts, and as we saw in the first game, so can Gardevoir.
Yeah, I think Vinny will likely choose to go first in this game. It's going to be interesting. Gustavo did choose to go first in game number 2, and usually there's only one correct choice for the matchup, right? You know, both players should want to do the same thing because that's what's better for the other player, right? So you want to limit them from having their best ideal setup. So I'm definitely curious to see what Vinny will choose.
And now prizes are being placed. Mirage Gate, Boss's Orders, VIP, Comfey, Giratina. Looks pretty balanced to my untrained eye.
Yeah, well, there's nothing terrible in the prizes, but it's certainly not ideal. A Curlia prize for Gustavo is not great. Energies for Vinny. And here we go, game number 3. Let's see who comes out on top. Just a bench of the Giratina and a pass.
Ooh, that's the awkward start I was afraid of, Chip. Mew comes onto the bench, level ball to find a Ralts. Jirachi gets an energy attached to it. This can just retreat, bring Mew into the active to use Mysterious Tail. One more shot at finding Battle VIP Pass and getting fully established in here, turn 1.
Yeah, Gustavo can also play a supporter, let's not forget, and I do think there was an Iono in the hand. It's going to take a moment to check the prize cards. We've got over 30 minutes here for this final game, so more than enough time for this game to have a natural conclusion, thanks mostly in part to that game 1 being so fast in Vinny's favor.
And I am getting word now, Chip, the winner of this Game 3 will ascend to the finals to take on Caleb Rogerson.
Oh, wow, yeah, Caleb Rogerson, the North Carolinian, defending his home state and looking to ascend the rankings of the North American top 16. Which one of these Brazilian players will be taking him on, we'll have to see.
And after this very thorough prize check, again, Gustavo Wada has been completely unfazed. Knows his matchup, knows his game plan back and forth, is just trusting that the deck is going to respond to his needs. And after this, Mew comes into the active spot, after the Iono, that is.
Going to be the Iono first, looking for more VIP pass, of course, giving yourself the best shot to find a VIP pass. You know, really proper sequencing here from Gustavo. Play the supporter, then go for the Mysterious Tail. Doesn't find a VIP pass here. He's going to look for it here off now these 6 cards from the top, and does find it.
Okay, and this is important as well, right? Some players would be like, oh, I don't want to use Iono because Vinny had a really slow start, and I want to make sure he stays on a dead hand. But, you know, with the turn going back over there, with flower selecting, potential colorless experiment, you can't really rely on that hand staying, you know, under control for long. It's much better for Gustavo Wada to focus on getting multiple routes in play and completing his own setup and game plan.
Yeah, we do see that Jirachi being in play. It was something that Gustavo started, but it can be a strong answer to the Sableye that was able to wreak havoc in game number 2. Though Gustavo did still come out on top in that one, Jirachi is normally a decent part of the game plan in this matchup. Vinny Fernandes drawing the Battle VIP Pass at the most inopportune time. Turn number 2. It seems like that's the turn where most of the Battle VIP Pass always seem to find a way to come through, right?
I definitely agree, Chip. You either get VIP Pass on turn 1 or turn 2, and then never again for the rest of the game. They all just go to the Lost Zone after that.
This Colress here, we'll see the top 5 for Vinny, already having a tough decision. He has not done a deck search yet, so Lost Zoning Energies is something that could be pretty risky.
Water Energy, Radiant Greninja kept.
Without the knowledge of what he has available. It looks like Boss's Orders, Grass Energy, and the Nest Ball are the final cards Vinny is considering.
Oh, yeah, a little spooked. Going to keep the Grass Energy. Saw how that was so important in game number 2. Just prioritize keeping energies is probably mathematically the best option when you haven't done a full deck search yet.
The Nest Ball could have found...
Sableye.
Oh, is it the Sableye?
The Jirachi's there.
Yeah.
So the Sableye,
it loses
just
a
go
lot
bye-bye.
of value, yeah. Now, Vinny, I don't think has a way to get the Cramorant just yet. That would be really nice to find. It's maybe why he considered keeping that Nest Ball for so long. Oh, there we go. Cramorant able to be found.
There you are, buddy. Now we just got to get this Comfey out of the active. Jet. Ooh, actually just going to look for Jet Energy on Giratina V for Abyss Seeking with 4 cards in the Lost Zone early. Doesn't want to just attack willy-nilly, activate Reversal Energies, activate Counter Catchers. Just wants to focus on setting up the Lost Zone, being in the, the zone for Mirage Gates and Star Requiems as quickly as possible.
And you know what I think this means is that this game, Vinny is going to try to go after something we haven't seen him be able to achieve just yet, and that is going to be the Radiant Greninja Moonlight Shuriken, trying to take down Gustavo's board. Gustavo does have 1 bench space open still, but if he commits to Manaphy, that means he's not going to be able to use any of his auxiliary attackers, something like the Scream Tail, right? It's going to be 1 less bench space for a Ralts to potentially become a different Gardevoir in future turns. we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, Gustavo Wada hasn't been punished yet by the Moonlight Shuriken. Maybe he's feeling a little bit confident. Maybe wants to go a little bit greedy in order to take this game number 3. It really depends on what his read on the overall matchup spread, right? Because there was that special exhibition show match between Isaiah Bradner and Jake Gearhart where that was the main point of contention. How good or bad is this matchup one way or the other? And so if you think the Moonlight Shuriken's not really that big a deal, I'm getting so much value right now with the Shining Arcana and the refinements. If they take a little bit of damage, it's no biggie. But that all remains to be seen.
Yeah, it does indeed. Gustavo is now filling the board. He did keep that Ultra Ball from the Mysterious Tail, so he'll have options for tons of different Pokemon depending on what the situation demands, depending on what the rest of the cards drawn end up doing for him.
Ultra Ball discarding a Battle VIP pass, one other card, looking perhaps for another Curlia. I think there's one rare candy still in the hand. No, yes, no, yes.
I think that might be the collapsed stadium there in the middle of the hand, not another rare candy. He does have that Professor Turo's scenario. I actually think he's using the promo version that you receive for playing in this weekend's tournament, and this is not a very common play from a Gardevoir player. Professor Turo's scenario to pick up a Curlia just to reset and use refinement once again.
Wow, make your own scoop up net. I see that. I mean, you need the card draw, the resources at this point. I think this really just shows that Gustavo recognizes this is a very key turn, was trying to dig deep for the Manaphy and gets it.
Does end up finding the Manaphy. Had to use the level ball to find it. He did have an Ultra Ball worst case scenario to go fetch it out of the deck, but works out pretty nicely here. Just a pass now, and let's see how Vinny wants to respond.
6 cards in the Lost Zone with the concealed cards. The Giratina V is already sitting in the active, so I think there's one Chorus in the hand. The hand is so big right now, Chip. And who knows if Vinny's just going to go for, Abyss Seeking number 2. Nope, instead goes for Switch, wants to get that 7th card in the Lost Zone first. Flower selecting, offers up a Psychic Energy and another Switch card. Sableye already been ditched, but you still need to keep track of your Psychic Energy to be able to use your Giratina V attacks. But gives it up.
Vinny does have Mirage Gate in hand, and I believe he also has a Boss's Orders, or maybe he's going to dig for it. I couldn't quite make out his hand here. Using this Pokegear 3.0, he'll look at the top 7. Let's see what he can find.
Grabs
maybe
a Chorus.
You know what he was looking for? He was looking for that Avery, that key one-of supporter card. This is the type of board that Vinny wants to try to capitalize on with the Avery, and that's something he has kept hidden from Gustavo. Gustavo may not be expecting it. He may not be aware that that is something that Vinny has access to in his list. Not a very common tech card, but it is something that comes up every once in a while.
And when you're playing a deck like Giratina V-Star, you know that other decks are trying to play around you and adapt to you, and sometimes they don't respect it, and you get to the privilege of kind of adapting some of your worst matchups, and the Avery's a great part of that. Another Comfey hitting the bench, Mirage Gate. So let me ask you, is he just going to go Mirage Gate, set up the Giratina V, or is this attaching energies to retreat into the Comfey to get one more dig at the Avery? Is it that important?
Yeah, I think it's just going on to the Giratina, which is what Vinny does choose to do here. He does have Switch card in hand, so he can still look one more time. He probably should concede the fact that Avery's not going to be very powerful, because it's going to be best on turns where you're comboing it with the threat of the Greninja Moonlight Shuriken. So if he wanted to dig once more, I would expect to see him hold on to the gate so that he has the threat of the Greninja available. One other thing as well, there is 1 Water Energy in the discard pile, but I think his other 2 Water Energy are actually in his hand. So it would have been pretty tough to pull off the Moonlight Shuriken play regardless. Just commits to the Colress now.
Mirage Gate being offered up. I see a Jet Energy and another Psychic Energy. There's one in the Lost Zone, one attached to Giratina V, out of 4 total in the deck, Chip. So maybe a little bit more value being attached to that basic energy.
It looks like Colress is going to be the first card decided to be kept. A Jet Energy and a Psychic as well. Looks like 2 energy going to the Lost Zone. Normally you want to be sending energies to the Lost Zone with Lost Impact, not because of Colress Experiment.
Yeah, so this is getting very thin in terms of margins for Vinny Fernandes. The longer the game goes, the more pressure there is to recover your energy from the discard pile with those Super Rods, and we saw how important Super Rod ended up being for game number 2. Evolves into Giratina V-Star, has the Star Requiem now or Lost Impact available rather than just going for a shred and getting knocked out in response.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Cramorant more than likely this turn, but Gustavo's got a lot of cards in hand, and he's got a lot of draw on his board, and we also know he has an Ultra Ball in hand from the Mew on the last turn, so if Vinny goes after a KO here with the Cramorant,
then that opens up reversal energy, counter catcher.
Exactly. This Giratina on the bench is far from safe.
Oh my god. Yeah, just pass. Get your attackers established. And Vinny, this is his adaptation from game 1 and what he learned in game 2 is I need to have multiple attackers ready and waiting to go on the bench before I really start to go aggressive because the strike back potential from Gardevoir is just so powerful.
We do see an energy hit off the Shining Arcana, and we do see that counter catcher was also in the hand, so Gustavo was ready to pounce if Vinny had taken that prize card.
His spider sense was tingling. He didn't want to get punished again.
Does find that Fog Crystal from the Mysterious Tail.
I love these Espeon Psychic Energies, by the way.
Yes, yes. Call back to the Heart Gold Soul Silver base set, which is the set that was really prevalent at the time that Gustavo actually won his World Championships.
So he's definitely got a soft spot for these energies. Soft spot for this Refinement Curlia, certainly. What's the draw here? Counter Catcher, Zacian V's chilling. We got Gardevoir EX in the hand. So this is a great establishing turn for Gustavo, but when you're a deck that wants to play from behind, you don't want to overextend, damaging a lot of your bench with the Psychic Embrace, playing into, you know, the Moonlight Shuriken now that that's been threatened. Maybe.
Yeah, and honestly, for Gustavo, some alarm bells should probably be going off with the energy card that was put on the Radiant Greninja that
Precisely.
a potential Avery is incoming, you know, something to certainly be thinking about.
Volsralt's in the Curlia, opens up another Refinement. And Gustavo Wada won game 2 by going through the entire deck. He is not afraid to just draw cards and find everything that he needs, even getting rid of a Gardevoir EX for now.
Just a pass of the turn once again. Look at this high-level play from both of our players. A true game of cat and mouse, a game of chicken. Who wants to be the one to strike first?
Yeah, both decks are known for their comeback potential, for their ability to fall behind and then take so many prizes all at once and dismantle their opponent's pressure and close out. And in game number 3,
here we go.
The Avery was found. I almost think it's Radiant Jirachi, but Jirachi goes down. Looks like Curlia is also being eyeballed to be discarded here.
Yeah, Gustavo knowing that giving up 2 prize cards to a Greninja is not going to be a winning strategy, but really that is still valuable trade-off from the Avery, right? Sending that Curlia to the Lost Zone. I think that's something Vinny is happy to come away with here.
Yeah, Gustavo keeping the Manaphy, which is nice. Going to use concealed cards to get rid of a Water Energy and draw 2 more cards.
Yeah, if he could...
The idea, right, of Avery, Path to the Peak, knock out a Pokemon, and you kind of leave your opponent in a really dire situation. And you'd like to cap this off, you know, with Counter Catcher to be able to find that key Pokemon to knock out. But
yeah, if only, right?
Yeah, both players, again, they're in
tied
this
on prizes.
Stalemate.
Yeah, they not activating any of those extra gusting cards. And then Vinny as well, with his deck building decisions here, did not choose to include any escape rope. So he's got to go through this Mew if he wants to do something. And that's the thing as well. You can't just sit here and do nothing forever. I feel like the long game does favor Gardevoir pretty heavily, to be honest.
It's just to be in a catch-22 like this. I think that Vinny Fernandes had a plan for the matchup, knew what he needed to do, and that was probably something that was developed in testing and, you know, just playing and studying Gardevoir, but Gustavo Wada is a cut above. We see this so many times, Chip, where an expert on the deck can flip a bad matchup on its head sometimes.
Looking through the deck, Vinny having a Super Rod remaining, a couple of energy cards as well. It's not too often you see a player's hand being this much larger than their deck at this point in the game.
Yeah, and Vinny's been putting those energies to the side this whole time in anticipation of the Super Rod Mirage Gate combination. and here it comes through now. Sableye has been sent to the Lost Zone, and it's all up to Giratina and friends to help close this one out. Now that Vinny has another Giratina V established with some energies on it, this might be the turn where he finally wants to start going aggressive. Doesn't feel like there's going to be too big of a punish.
Yeah, probably going to see the Cramorant come up, take a knockout on this Mew, and that'll lead Vinny to taking the first prize and activate all those powerful cards for Gustavo. And that's exactly why we're seeing the extra energies being prepped on this Giratina. A little bit of, safety-proofing himself from a potential Iono that he would expect.
Capping things off with the path to the peak as well. Once I take this knockout, not only do you need to have the Gardevoir EX or a Super Rod to get that back in the deck and draw into it, you also need to bump the path in order to power up the Gardevoir. Do you have the counter catcher, reversal energy? The way that Vinny has mapped this turn is forcing Gustavo to have a lot of very specific cards in hand in order to appropriately respond to this play.
That is a huge hit. The Psychic Energy from the Shining Arcana. Now Gustavo can get the knockout on a Giratina V just to take 2 prizes without even needing to put Gardevoir EX in play thanks to Reversal Energy, and that is exactly what Gustavo is going for.
Oh my goodness,
that
that's
Shining
disgusting.
Arcana hit was huge.
The free energy attachment, and it is spots like this where it really shines its brightest chip. Getting that extra attachment, that extra damage for free, not needing the Gardevoir EX, even has the Lost Vacuum to bump that path to the peak anyway.
Yeah, the only other thing I think Gustavo would like to do here would be to just try to reestablish, right? Get some more Ralts into play, play a Super Rod, get some Level Ball, maybe the Artisan, something along those lines. But it is going to be the Collapse Stadium as the play for the turn, and Research will discard this hand. Really, I would imagine looking for Super Rod and a couple of Level Ball if he has them.
Yeah, the Gardevoir EX in the discard pile once more. There is only 2 in the deck.
Refinement.
Another Refinement. Are we seeing it? Scream Tail.
That's a good attacker next turn, potentially. Another thing as well is I think Gustavo did discard his other Gardevoir EX.
Yeah, that was way earlier as well, Chip. So both are in the discard pile. He needs the Super Rod now to bring that Psychic Embrace back to the front.
And there is a Super Rod in the prize card. So honestly, Gustavo Wada maybe playing with fire a little bit here.
Painting himself into a corner potentially, certainly, Chip.
And now it is Gustavo who is ahead on the prize trade. So Vinny Fernandes can use his powerful come from behind cards, those counter catchers. But since Gustavo did not have to put a Gardevoir in play, there's really nothing that I think Vinny wants to knock out more than this active Gardevoir. Deal with the main threat. But I have to say, Gustavo's board is really not looking that strong. So Vinny probably wants to try to take this knockout this turn, and then if Gustavo is able to respond, maybe with something like the Scream Tail, able to take a knockout, it could set up for Vinny to activate Roxanne. Put Gustavo down to just 2 cards, and then at the same time, perhaps counter catcher something like a Kirlia or a Ralts that Gustavo is trying to prep to become a potential Kirlia. And Vinny could leave Gustavo with just 2 cards with a path to the peak in play and no consistent draw power.
That punch and counter punch, so important for this matchup, certainly. And
4 cards left in the deck, by the way, for Vinny at this point.
yeah, and you can see how both players are just scraping the bottom of the barrel, have to make use of every ounce of resources that their deck is capable of. And even though Vinny can go aggressive here, potentially put himself on a great trajectory with Gustavo Wada's awkward board state, with so few cards remaining in the deck, and only having right now Giratina V-Star and Cramorant as your attackers, even if Vinny takes this knockout, if Gustavo Wada is able to pull off another strong, crackback, it could be Vinny being the one that is out, hung out to dry.
This is a pretty good turn for Vinny, but he does not find another Giratina V to put into play. So if Gustavo is able to go aggressive with, for example, a Zacian V, can get a 1-hit KO on this only Giratina, and that's a great card to find Artisan to immediately bump the path. I think the missing piece at this point, though, for Gustavo is the Super Rod.
Has 1 refinement, doesn't use the Artisan yet to get anything out of the deck. I don't know if there is anything left in there.
Super Rod?
Oh, he put the cards at the back. I didn't see.
3 cards remaining, and I think Super Rod is one of those 3.
Oh, no. Has Worker to draw.
And discard his own stadium?
Draws the remaining 3 cards in deck.
No, 4
Oh, there was 4
cards.
cards. Finds the Super Rod. Okay.
He is able to make that happen, but with that Artisan going down, that was going to be how Gustavo tried to rebuild his board, right? Wanted to find the Super Rod and then immediately get a Ralts right back into play and try to get himself reestablished.
And so Super Rod gets the Zacian, the Gardevoir EX out of the discard
so
pile.
many resources in the discard pile right now for Gustavo.
Yeah, every resource
Yeah.
in the discard pile. Then the Gardevoir EXs were discarded very early on, payment for refinements just to get established, try to build up a board, and it just came down where the timing was never right to recover these, and finally the second Super Rod is found because the other is in the prizes.
Yep.
And now it's awkward. Vinny has this Giratina V-Star in the active spot with the appropriate energies to threaten for Star Requiem. Gustavo Wada now needs to not only shuffle this Gardevoir EX back into the deck, but needs to find a way to get it out of the deck while still keeping enough remaining cards to not deck out over the next couple rounds.
Just a few more turns before that would become something to worry about. Really having a hard time to decide what Pokemon to put back here. Got to make an action. Got to make a decision. It looks like it will be 2 Gardevoir EX. I think there may be a Ralts in the hand. That's why he's going this route.
Okay, there are Ultra Balls there. Probably a lot of
ways
easy discards here.
Plenty of ways to get access to those Pokemon that he put down.
Yep, just discards a rare candy, finds Gardevoir EX, and there's the evolution. Psychic Embrace finally taking center stage. Power up this Screamtail if he likes. Take a bench snipe. This is still very shaky, right, Chip? Because the Giratina V-Star is just sitting there menacingly saying, oh, finally there is the target for my Star Requiem hitting play.
Yeah, but let's remember that Giratina V-Star is going down this turn. That is going to be the idea here of attacking with the Zacian. Giratina's going down. Vinny will be able to respond pretty easily with the Cramorant, dealing 110 damage. There's going to be a lot of damage placed on this Zacian V in order to get the KO.
And when you evaluate, which Pokemon does Vinny have that even threaten the Gardevoir EX, it is purely Giratina V-Star. So with this going down, Vinny's threat potential is very, very much out the window, and it's just going to be Cramorant doing these cleanup KOs versus damaged Psychic Pokemon. And with Gustavo Wada having 2 prize cards remaining, I think the tempo goes massively back in his favor.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out because Vinny is going to have to second-guess himself about putting another Giratina V in play. That opens up a pretty straightforward win condition. He doesn't know that Gustavo has a Super Rod prize. If this Zacian goes down, it's not something that can be a threat on the next turn. Vinny does not know that, and he has to respect the potential of Gustavo being able to Super Rod, put that card back, get it right back out, and then boss his orders to close out the game.
Game 3, both players incredibly low on resources, incredibly low on cards in deck. If Vinny Fernandes has kept his wits about him, maybe has some sort of read that the Super Rod isn't there, wants to extend to take down the Zacian while also benching the Giratina V. Because of the way the prize map has lined up, I don't think there's any other way for Vinny to win except with Giratina V-Star.
Yeah, I mean, he could buy multiple turns, right? He doesn't necessarily have to win in 2 turns. What we could see him do is Roxanne, Path, attack with Cramorant. Take the knockout. Gustavo, look at this board. There's no Greninja. There's no Kirlia. There's no Shining Arcana Gardevoir. He's going to be left to whatever he draws off of that Roxanne, and that could give Vinny a chance to just spit innocently multiple turns in a row and eventually build up enough damage in play to become a finalist here in Charlotte.
Collapse Stadium was already used. Worker was already used. The Lost Vacuum was already used.
And that Artisan was already used. Gustavo is actually out of ways to bump past the peak.
Oh my God, and Vinny Fernandes definitely recognizes this. Does he have the path in hand? It's got to be there. Look how big this is.
Yeah, he does have the path, and he's got a couple of Roxanne as well. A little awkward to navigate. he is running low on resources. Really, this has become quite a fight for both players. And Vinny, using Flower Selecting, does find that last card in deck, immediately flipping it over to play the Super Rod to replenish the deck with several different energy cards.
So now it's all energies in the deck, but this ain't Aqua Storm.
Yeah, not an Aqua Storm angle at this point. Could be a Mirage Gate angle in order to load up that, that Giratina, threatening for the game-winning play on the next turn. Here comes the path. Here comes that Roxanne.
All right. The question that has so many Pokemon players confused, scholars debating, is Roxanne real? Does Gustavo Wada have the plot armor? Can he draw out of this? You can't even bump the path. You just have to draw into something that can...
I think this is looking tough, to be honest, Skarzig. I'm not sure what Gustavo could find off of 2 cards that get him out of this situation. But if there's someone who can identify the play, it's going to be Gustavo Wada for now, though. Vinny Fernandes sends up this Cramorant, takes the KO, down to 2 prizes, tying up the game. Very important, though. Boss's Orders is one of those last 2 prize cards. That would be how Vinny could close it out. So Gustavo may get a couple turns to piece together a way to win this game.
Yeah, a nice boss stall, buy some turns, maybe even a deck out angle.
It is something that could come up, but... this is what the problem is with Gardevoir when you don't have your draw power in play. You don't have Curlias. You don't have access to Greninja. You don't have Gardevoir. You just have to attach and pass. Vinny Fernandes absolutely in the driver's seat. I don't think he's going to have a Boss's Orders right now to close out the game. Just 2 cards remaining in the deck.
Giratina V-Star, they're even on prizes. Countercatcher is off the table. Comfey being put onto the bench as well. Cramorant is in the active. It can attack and take another prize.
Spit innocently takes the Boss's Orders for Vinny. Gustavo, with nothing left in the tank, concedes. And it will be Vinny Fernandes moving on to our finals here in Charlotte.
What a crazy best of 3. Giratina V-Star versus Gardevoir. A matchup that is all about finding the right moment to